It started like any other Wednesday evening. I was running errands, as usual, juggling work calls and mental to-do lists while trying to beat rush hour. Ethan had asked me to pick up his car from the mechanic, something about a rattling noise he swore had been driving him crazy. "Thanks, hun," he had said that morning, pressing a quick kiss to my temple before grabbing his thermos of coffee. "You're a lifesaver. Don't forget it," I teased, rolling my eyes as I waved him out the door. He flashed a grin, the one that used to melt me, but lately, it felt more like an old photograph, a little faded, a little distant. Later that day, I sat in the driver's seat of his car, the smell of oil and fresh upholstery from the repair job faintly noticeable. I was adjusting the seat when I dropped a pen, and it rolled under the driver's seat. Muttering to myself, I reached down, fishing around blindly. My fingers grazed something cold and metallic, not the pen. Frowning, I pulled it out. A phone. Not Ethan's sleek smartphone, but an older model. A burner phone. My stomach did a strange little flip. "What on earth?" I whispered to no one. I turned it over in my hands, the black plastic casing unremarkable except for the weight it suddenly carried in my mind. It was off. No notifications. No sign of life. The logical side of me tried to rationalize. Maybe it belonged to a friend or a coworker. Maybe it was something work-related. But why was it under the seat? And why hadn't he mentioned it? By the time I pulled into our driveway, my head was buzzing with theories, each one worse than the last. I tucked the phone back under the seat and grabbed my purse, forcing a smile as I walked into the house. Ethan was sprawled on the couch, laptop open, a faint glow lighting his face. He glanced up as I entered. "Hey, how'd it go? Car fixed?" "Yeah," I said, my voice sounding oddly tight. "No more rattling." "Great." He turned back to his screen, typing away, seemingly oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. I stood there for a moment, staring at him, wanting to say something, but the words caught in my throat. "What if it's nothing?" A small voice in my head whispered. I had no proof, just a nod of suspicion and a phone I hadn't dared turn on. I sank into the armchair opposite him, picking up a magazine to hide my nerves. The sound of his typing filled the silence, steady and predictable, like everything about Ethan. Or at least, everything I thought I knew. "Something on your mind?" he asked suddenly, not looking up. "No, just tired," I lied, flipping a page I wasn't reading. "Long day?" His tone was casual, but there was a hint of warmth that made me feel a pang of guilt. "Yeah, you could say that." I forced a small smile. "I think I'll turn in early." He nodded. "Good idea. I'll be up in a bit." I headed to the bedroom, but sleep was the last thing on my mind. I couldn't shake the image of that phone, its silent weight feeling heavier than it should. As I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, I wondered how much more I didn't know about Ethan, and if I was ready to find out. The next morning, the phone was all I could think about. It sat under the car seat like a secret too heavy to carry, but impossible to ignore. I dropped my coffee mug in the sink with a loud clatter, jolting Ethan from his morning routine. "You okay?" he asked, peering at me over the rim of his mug. "Yeah," I said quickly, avoiding his gaze. "Just clumsy today." He shrugged and went back to scrolling on his phone. I couldn't help but watch him, wondering what else he scrolled through when I wasn't around. My imagination spiraled, dredging up scenes I wasn't ready to face. By lunchtime, I couldn't stand it anymore. Nia, my best friend and self-appointed voice of reason, called right as I was about to text her. "You're quiet," she said after our usual hellos. "What's up? You never skip your midweek rant about your coworkers." I laughed, despite myself. "I found something yesterday," I started, hesitating. "Something in Ethan's car." Her tone sharpened. "What kind of something?" "A phone. Not his. An old one." I paused, feeling ridiculous even as I said it. "It was hidden under the seat." "Hidden?" She drew out the word like it was toxic. "And you're just sitting on this information?" What was I supposed to do? Confront him? Yeah," she said, exasperated. "Amara? A burner phone? That's like cheating husband 101. I flinched. I don't want to jump to conclusions. "Then find out," she said simply. "Turn it on. See what's there. If it's nothing, you'll feel better. If it's something, well, better to know, right?" I sighed. What if I don't want to know? Nia was quiet for a moment. Then her voice softened. "You already do, Amara. You just need proof." Her words hit me harder than I expected. She wasn't wrong. My gut had been churning ever since I found that phone. I thanked her and hung up, but the weight of our conversation lingered. That evening, Ethan was distracted with work again. The perfect opportunity. I retrieved the phone from his car after dinner, holding it like it was some forbidden artifact. My hands trembled as I pressed the power button. The screen flickered to life, illuminating a series of text messages. My stomach dropped. The texts were vague but damning. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Missed you last time. Same place as before? I stared at the screen, the words blurring together. Who was he meeting? Why the secrecy? My mind raced, cycling through every possible explanation, none of them good. Everything okay? Ethan's voice startled me. I shoved the phone into my pocket and turned, heart pounding. He was standing in the doorway, holding 2 mugs of tea. Yeah, I said too quickly. Just, looking for my charger. He frowned slightly but didn't press. Here, he handed me a mug. Figured you could use this. Thanks. I forced a smile, the warmth of the mug doing nothing to calm the chill that had settled in my chest. As he walked back to the couch, I sat down at the kitchen table, the phone heavy in my pocket. I could feel the gap widening between us, the space filling with unanswered questions and growing doubt. That night, as Ethan slept soundly beside me, I stared at the ceiling, replaying the messages over and over in my mind. Nia's words echoed in my head. You already know. You just need proof. The truth felt close enough to touch, but I wasn't sure I was ready to grab hold of it. The next 2 days were a haze of second-guessing and sleepless nights. Every time Ethan said or did something, I dissected it, searching for hidden meanings. Did the way he lingered on his goodnight kiss mean something? Was he extra distracted during dinner? My own thoughts were driving me insane. Friday evening, the moment I'd been dreading and anticipating finally came. Ethan stood by the door, adjusting his tie, his bag slung over one shoulder. Late meeting tonight, he said casually, the words punching holes in my resolve. Don't wait up, okay? I nodded, unable to trust my voice. You good? He paused, studying me. Yeah, just a headache. His brow furrowed, but he didn't press. All right, I'll see you later. The second the door clicked shut, I sprang into action. I grabbed my keys and phone, rushing to my car. His taillights were just disappearing down the street. My hands trembled as I started the engine and pulled out behind him, staying far enough back to avoid suspicion. The drive was uneventful, though my heart felt like it was trying to escape my chest. He turned into the lot of a small cafe on the edge of town. It was the kind of place you'd go to blend in, quiet, with dim lighting and a nondescript sign. I parked a few spaces away, watching as he walked inside and sat at a corner table. And then she walked in. A young woman, maybe 16 or 17, with wild dark curls spilling over her shoulders. She looked nervous as she approached Ethan, her steps hesitant. He stood, greeting her with a warm smile. It was the kind of smile that used to be reserved for me. My breath caught. This is it. This is the truth, I thought, my stomach twisting into knots. I couldn't stay in the car. I had to know. The bell above the cafe door jingled as I pushed it open, the sound cutting through the low hum of conversations. Heads turned briefly, but my focus was locked on the pair in the corner. Ethan's face drained of color as I approached. Amara? His voice was a mix of surprise and alarm. Don't Amara me, I snapped, my voice low but shaking. Who is she? The girl's eyes darted to Ethan, then back to me. She looked like she wanted to disappear. Amara, let's talk outside, Ethan said, his voice firm but calm. No. I planted my hands on the table. We'll talk here, right now. Who is this, Ethan? The girl shrank into her chair, looking like a cornered animal. Ethan sighed, running a hand through his hair. This is Lila, he said finally, his voice steady. She's my daughter. The words landed like a punch to the chest. I blinked, unsure if I'd heard him right. Your what? My daughter, he repeated, quieter this time. From before us. I stared at him, my mind racing to connect the dots. He had never mentioned a daughter. Never. I didn't know about her until a few months ago, he continued, glancing at Lila. Her mom reached out. She wanted me to reconnect. And you thought it was a good idea to keep this from me? My voice was rising, the hurt bubbling over. I didn't know how to tell you. he said, his tone pleading. I didn't even know if she'd want to meet me, let alone be part of our lives. I turned to Lila, who had been sitting silently, her hands gripping the edge of the table. Is this true? I asked, softer now. She nodded, barely meeting my eyes. He didn't want to make things harder for you, or me. The room felt suffocating, the weight of the truth pressing down on me. Ethan wasn't lying. I could see it in his face, hear it in his voice. This wasn't about betrayal. It was about fear. I need some air, I muttered, backing away from the table. Amara? Ethan started, but I held up a hand. Just give me a minute. Outside, the cool evening air hit my face, but it did little to calm the storm inside me. The truth was out, but it left me feeling just as unsteady as the secrets had. A few moments later, Ethan joined me, his expression cautious. I'm sorry, he said simply. I handled this wrong. I should have told you sooner. Yeah, I said, my voice thick with emotion. You should have. We stood in silence for a moment, the sound of passing cars filling the gap between us. I didn't mean to hurt you, he said finally. I just didn't know how to make it all fit. I looked at him, searching for something, an apology, an explanation, anything to help me make sense of it. You're going to have to earn back my trust, Ethan, I said quietly. But for now, let's go back inside. I think I need to get to know your daughter. His eyes softened with gratitude, and for the first time in days, I felt a glimmer of something I hadn't felt in a while. Hope. Walking back into the cafe with Ethan felt like stepping into uncharted territory. Lila was still sitting at the table, her hands clasped tightly around a mug of hot chocolate. She looked up as we approached, her expression a mix of apprehension and guilt. I slid into the seat across from her while Ethan sat beside her, his posture tense. For a moment, none of us said anything. The air was thick, heavy with the weight of all that had gone unsaid. You must be Lila, I began, my voice softer than I expected. I'm Amara. She nodded, her curls bouncing slightly with the motion. Hi, she said quietly, barely meeting my eyes. Ethan cleared his throat. I know this is a lot to take in. A lot? I cut him off, my tone sharper than I intended. Ethan, you hid an entire person from me. Your daughter. Lila flinched, and guilt immediately twisted in my stomach. I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. I'm sorry, I said, looking directly at her. This isn't your fault. I'm just processing. Lila shrugged, her gaze dropping to her mug. I get it. You're mad at him. I'd be mad too. That caught me off guard. There was something about her tone, matter of fact, but with an undercurrent of sadness that tugged at me. It's not just that, I said, leaning forward slightly. I didn't even know you existed until 5 minutes ago. I'm trying to wrap my head around it. She finally looked up, her dark eyes locking with mine. Same here, she said. I didn't know about him until a few months ago either. I blinked. You didn't? She shook her head. My mom never told me. She said he wasn't ready for kids and didn't want to stick around. Ethan stiffened beside her, his jaw tightening. That's not true, he said firmly. I didn't even know she was pregnant. If I had, I know, Lila interrupted, her voice soft but steady. I believe you now. It's just a lot, you know? I nodded, her words resonating in a way I hadn't expected. Yeah, it is. The conversation flowed easier after that. Lila started opening up, sharing bits and pieces about her life, her love of painting, her struggle to fit in at school, and how she'd been scared to meet Ethan. She spoke with a mix of confidence and vulnerability that reminded me of someone. It wasn't until she laughed, a low, throaty sound, that I realized who, Ethan. How long have you been meeting like this? I asked after a while, glancing between them. Just a few weeks, Ethan admitted. I wanted to make sure she was comfortable before. His voice trailed off as he gestured toward me. You, Lila finished, her lips quirking into a small smile. He wouldn't shut up about you, by the way. Kept saying how amazing you are. I blinked, surprised. He did? Ethan flushed, looking down at his coffee. Well, you are. I wasn't sure how to respond to that, so I focused on Lila. How do you feel about all this? Meeting him, I mean. She hesitated, her fingers tracing the edge of her mug. It's weird, she said finally. Good weird mostly, but also scary. I've been on my own with my mom for so long, I don't know how to do this. I softened at her honesty. I think we're all figuring it out as we go." Her eyes flicked to mine, and for the first time, I saw a glimmer of trust there. It was fragile, like a delicate thread, but it was something. By the time we left the cafe, the tension between us had eased. Ethan offered to walk Lila to her car, leaving me standing by ours, watching them. He placed a hand on her shoulder as they spoke, his expression one of quiet determination. For all my anger and hurt, I couldn't deny how much he cared for her. When he returned, I crossed my arms, leaning against the car. "You should have told me." "I know," he said, his voice heavy with regret. "I thought I was protecting you and her, but I see now that I just made things harder." "Yeah, you did," I sighed, running a hand through my hair. "But I get it. I don't like it, but I get it." He reached for my hand, his touch tentative. "I'll make it right, Amara. I promise." I studied him for a moment, the sincerity in his eyes stirring something I couldn't quite name. "You better," I said, squeezing his hand briefly before letting go, because trust isn't something you can just rebuild overnight. That night, as we lay in bed, I stared at the ceiling, my thoughts swirling. Meeting Lila had been a shock, but it also felt like a new beginning. There was a lot to work through: anger, hurt, and a mess of other emotions. But for the first time, I felt a sliver of hope. I glanced at Ethan, his face softened in sleep, and whispered, "Don't let me down." Whether he heard me or not, I wasn't sure, but I knew one thing. We had a long road ahead, and this was only the beginning. The days after meeting Lila passed in a blur. Every conversation with Ethan felt like walking a tightrope, balancing between rebuilding trust and addressing my lingering hurt. He was patient, careful not to push too hard, but the tension in the air was palpable. Then there was Lila. She started coming around more, each visit feeling like a cautious step into unfamiliar territory. At first, we danced around each other, careful and polite, but slowly, the ice began to thaw. One afternoon, Lila was sitting at the dining table, sketching in a worn notebook. Ethan had stepped out to take a call, leaving just the two of us. I hovered near the counter, unsure of how to bridge the silence. "That's beautiful," I said finally, nodding toward her drawing. She looked up, startled, then down at the page. It was a detailed sketch of a bird mid-flight, its wings spread wide. "Thanks," she mumbled, her pencil stilling. "Do you draw often?" "Yeah, it's kind of my thing," she said, her tone soft but not unkind. I hesitated before pulling up a chair across from her. "You're really talented. Have you ever thought about pursuing art professionally?" She shrugged, her pencil tracing faint lines. "Maybe. Mom always said it's not practical. She wanted me to focus on something real." The bitterness in her voice was subtle, but unmistakable. I leaned forward slightly. "For what it's worth, I think doing what you love is the most real thing you can do." She glanced at me, her expression cautious, like she wasn't sure if she believed me. But there was a flicker of something, acknowledgement maybe, before she turned back to her sketch. That evening, as Ethan and I cleaned up after dinner, I shared the moment with him. "She's incredible," I said, stacking plates in the sink. He nodded, his face lighting up. "She is. I just wish I'd known sooner. I missed so much, Amara." There was a crack in his voice that caught me off guard. I set the dishes down and turned to him, my heart softening. "You're here now," I said gently, "and she knows that. That's what matters." He gave me a small, grateful smile, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a sliver of the old Ethan, the man I fell in love with. A week later, Lila joined us for her first official family dinner. Ethan insisted on making his famous spaghetti, a recipe he hadn't touched in years. "I hope you like carbs," I joked as we set the table. Lila smirked. "If I didn't, I'd be doomed. Mom's idea of dinner is a kale salad with lemon water." Ethan laughed, and I couldn't help but smile at how easily she fit into the rhythm of the evening. As we ate, the conversation flowed more naturally than I expected. Lila shared stories about her school, her friends, and her love of indie music. Ethan talked about work, and I added anecdotes about the chaos of planning events. By the time we cleared the plates, it felt normal, like a family. Later that night, as Ethan and I sat on the couch, the TV playing softly in the background, he turned to me. "Thank you," he said, his voice low. "For what?" "For giving her a chance. For giving me a chance." I rested my head on his shoulder, the warmth of his words settling over me. You're lucky she's amazing. Otherwise, this would be a lot harder. He chuckled, wrapping an arm around me. I know I messed up, Amara, but I'm going to spend the rest of my life making it up to you. I didn't reply, but the way I held on to him said enough. In the weeks that followed, life found a new rhythm. It wasn't perfect. There were still moments of tension, still doubts to work through, but there was progress. Lila started coming over more often, and I found myself genuinely looking forward to her visits. One evening, as she was packing up her sketchbook, she paused by the door. Hey, Amara. Yeah? She hesitated, biting her lip. Thanks for being cool about all this. I know it's not easy. I smiled, my chest tightening with a mix of emotions. You're worth it, Lila. We're all figuring this out together. She nodded, her expression softening. Night. Good night, Lila. As the door closed behind her, I turned to Ethan, who was watching with a quiet smile. She's a good kid, I said. She really is, he agreed. That night, as I lay in bed, I found myself reflecting on how far we'd come. Life didn't always turn out the way you planned, but sometimes the unexpected could lead to something beautiful. And while our story was still unfolding, I felt certain of one thing. This was a chapter worth writing.